I heard the news through a frantic news alert. His everlasting muse had died in a plane crash, and his wife had followed him into death, a tragic suicide of devotion. Before she took her final breath, she left a single, venomous note. My only regret is that you saved me. I would rather have rotted into the earth if it meant being by Dominic's side. When my daughter learned of her mother's death, she turned all that grief into a razor-edged hatred directed solely at me. If you hadn't forced Mom to stay with you, she would have married Dominic years ago, she screamed, her eyes wild with a malice I didn't recognize. You're a murderer. The betrayal of my wife and the hatred of my daughter finally shattered the walls I had built around my heart. Years ago, when a Metropolitan Art Gallery went up in flames, Dominic Thorne had only thought of himself. He bribed the first responders to get him out first, lying to their faces that he was the only soul left in the burning wing. I was the one who ignored the do not enter signs, the one who plunged into the inferno to drag Sienna out. Afterward, Dominic twisted the narrative, blaming Sienna for abandoning him to the fire. He fled to Europe, cutting her off entirely. I was left with a jagged, horrific scar running down the side of my face, and my architectural firm crumbled as clients recoiled from my disturbing appearance. I never held her infidelity against her. I risked my life to save hers, and in the end, I was left utterly alone. My daughter's final gift to me was a poisoned cup of tea and a lighter. As the house went up in flames, she hissed, "You murderer, go to hell and apologize to Mom and Dominic." When I opened my eyes again, the searing heat of the fire was gone. I was back in our penthouse, sitting across from Sienna on the day she asked for a divorce. I didn't hesitate. I picked up the pen and signed my name. I surrendered all custody of our daughter without a single word of protest. "Julian," Sienna said, her voice dripping with that faux sweetness she used when she wanted something, "I'm glad you're being mature about this. Signing these papers. It shows you finally care about my happiness. I'll remember this kindness." The phantom pain of my skin melting in the fire still throbbed in my mind. I barely heard her soft girl manipulation. I shook my head slightly, trying to clear the fog of death, and glanced at the agreement on the marble table. I was walking away with nothing. No assets, no alimony, just the clothes on my back. I let out a sharp, cold laugh. Sienna was certainly willing to pay a high price to be with her little artist. "You don't want custody of Chloe?" I asked, testing the waters. Chloe was a viper in the making. In this life, I wouldn't let her inherit a single cent of my future. Sienna's eyes flickered, a suppressed spark of joy dancing in them. "You'd really let me take Chloe?" In her mind, Chloe was the sun and moon to me. I had spent every waking hour doting on her, treating her like a literal princess. But in my final moments in that other life, Chloe had called another man father while she watched me burn. My heart was a block of ice. I nodded. "You carried her for 9 months. She belongs with her mother." Sienna was practically glowing. She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a revised agreement, already prepared, specifying that she had full legal and physical custody. I signed it before she could even finish her sentence. She clutched the papers to her chest, her hips swaying with excitement as she rushed out the door to find Dominic. Dominic had recently slithered back into the country, using some wealthy European socialite's money to pose as a misunderstood visionary for a new gallery opening. In his spare time, he'd been breadcrumbing his old flame, Sienna. He probably hadn't expected her to actually blow up her life for him. In my last life, I refused a divorce. Sienna tried to elope with him, but they got trapped in that gallery fire. Dominic, terrified of a scandal, threw her under the bus, lied to the police, and fled back to his sugar mama overseas. He eventually died in that plane crash, and Sienna, ever the martyr, ended her life in devotion. I poured myself a glass of expensive bourbon, savoring the amber liquid. A toast to rebirth. A few hours later, the headlines started hitting the wires. "Massive blaze at downtown art gallery." I call my driver immediately. "Get the car. Take me to the Metropolitan." This time, I want a front row seat to see the two of them tear each other apart. The scene was chaos. The fire was a roaring beast, and the heat was so intense the firefighters were struggling to breach the perimeter. I ran toward them, putting on my best mask of frantic desperation. "My wife, the mother of my child, is in there," I shouted, grabbing a captain's arm. "Please, save her. My daughter can't lose her mother." The captain held me back as I made a show of nearly collapsing to my knees. He promised me they would do everything in their power. I thanked him profusely, then walked to a quiet corner of the police line to watch. There were 2 victims trapped this time. I wondered if Dominic would still walk out unscathed. Strangely, the fire seemed more aggressive than I remembered, perhaps a ripple effect of my change in actions. Time ticked by in agonizing increments until finally, a firefighter emerged from the smoke, carrying a limp figure. I pushed forward. It was Sienna. Her face was miraculously untouched, but the rest of her body was a roadmap of third-degree burns. A moment later, they dragged Dominic out. He wasn't so lucky. A falling beam had crushed his leg, and the right side of his face was a charred, unrecognizable mess. Satisfied with the view, I turned and left. When I got back to the office, my assistant, Marcus, met me with a folder. "Mr. Vance, the London trade merger documents are ready for review." I remembered this. In my previous life, I was hospitalized for months after the fire, and this deal, the one that would have secured my firm's future, slipped through my fingers. "Book the flight for tonight," I said. "We're closing this deal." Marcus looked at me, confused. Should I notify Mrs. Vance? Everyone knew I rarely traveled for work since the wedding. I had made my family my entire world. Sienna had practically forbidden me from leaving the state. My expression turned stone cold. "Tell the entire firm. As of today, there is no Mrs. Vance." Marcus didn't ask questions. He ran to book the tickets. I pulled out my phone, which had been buzzing incessantly. Dozens of missed calls from my in-laws and Chloe. I didn't look at a single one. I powered the device off and boarded the jet to London. The negotiations went better than expected, but the real surprise was the representative for the British firm. It was Serafina Sterling, the it girl from my college days, the one I'd been too cowardly to actually pursue back then. Given my awkward history with her, I wasn't sure how to greet her, but Serafina was as graceful as ever. She invited me on a tour of the city as if we were old friends. "Julian, I'll be personally overseeing our partnership from here on out," she said, her eyes bright. "I appreciate that, Sarah," I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. It's good to have a familiar face in my corner. Once the contract was inked, I returned to Chicago. The moment I turned my phone on, it exploded with notifications. "Julian, you heartless bastard. My daughter is dying. She's in a coma in the ICU, and you're nowhere to be found. Where the hell are you?" The voice of my mother-in-law was a shrill rake across my nerves. I hung up. I drove straight to the hospital. Sienna was wrapped like a mummy, unable to move a muscle. My father-in-law, Arthur, raised his cane to strike me, but my security team stepped in immediately. He glared, his face purple with rage. "What? You're going to lay hands on an old man now?" Martha, my mother-in-law, was draped over Sienna's bed, wailing about what a monster I was. Then Chloe stepped forward. She pushed past the guards and stood in front of me, her voice cold and accusing. "Why didn't you save her this time?" I looked deep into my daughter's eyes, my gaze sharp as a needle. "I was in London on business. How exactly was I supposed to save her?" She faltered, whispering to herself, "That's impossible. You were supposed to save her. You were the one who was supposed to be in that bed." The words were quiet, but I heard them perfectly. My blood ran cold. Chloe had regressed too. Ignoring her, I pulled the divorce papers from my coat and laid them on the table in front of her grandparents. Sienna and I were divorced before the fire even started. As her ex-husband, I have no legal or moral obligation to be here. Arthur and Martha stopped their theatrics. They grabbed the papers, saw the zero-asset clause and the custody agreement, and ripped them into shreds in a fit of rage. "This is a lie. We don't recognize this. You think you can just dump our daughter when she's like this, without giving us a cent? Not a chance." In my last life, even after Sienna cheated, I treated these people like my own parents. I funded their retirement, paid for their vacations, and catered to their every whim. Yet, when Chloe set that fire, they stood there and watched me burn with smiles on their faces. Leeches. They weren't getting another drop of my blood. Just then, Sienna groaned. Her eyes fluttered open, and she wheezed out a single name, Dominic. "How is Dominic?" Arthur and Martha looked at me, confused. I smirked and signaled Marcus to bring out the photos. The pictures of Sienna and Dominic in their secret love nest were laid bare on the hospital tray. Arthur and Martha trembled as they looked at the evidence of their daughter's infidelity. They began shaking Sienna's bed in a panic. "Sienna, you gave up everything for a fling? You signed away the house for this." Sienna winced, coughing painfully. Chloe stepped in, pushing them back with a look of righteous indignation. "Mom and Dominic are soulmates. Dad was the one who kept them apart. Grandpa, Grandma, if you really love Mom, you'll support her." Sienna caught her breath, her voice raspy. "Chloe's right. I signed those papers willingly." Then, the pain seemed to hit her all at once. She looked down at the layers of gauze covering her body. "What happened? Why am I like this?" Chloe held her mother's shaking hand, her voice soothing. "Mom, it's just some burns. Once you're out of here, we'll find the best plastic surgeon in the world. It'll be like it never happened. What matters is that you and Dominic went through the fire together. Your bond is stronger than ever now." Sienna's panic subsided, replaced by a strange, glassy-eyed calm. Yes, Dominic is what matters. Where is he? Take me to him." Dominic Thorne was currently in the burn unit across the hall, missing half his face and a functioning leg, and he was in a murderous, foul mood. Chloe managed to find a wheelchair and began wheeling the bandaged Sienna toward Dominic's room. Her parents followed, looking like they'd aged a decade in minutes. Before they even reached the door, a handheld mirror came flying out of the room, shattering against the corridor wall. From inside, Dominic's voice rose in a ragged, hateful roar. "Quacks. If you can't fix my face and my leg, I'll sue this hospital into the ground." Sienna heard his voice and began frantically wheeling herself into the room. "Dominic, are you okay? I'm here. Don't be scared." Chloe added her 2 cents, trying to play the peacemaker. "Dominic, Mom came to see you the second she woke up." Dominic's expression was ghoulish, his eyes burning with a localized insanity. "If it wasn't for you, you bitch, the firefighters would have reached me 5 minutes sooner. I'm disfigured because of you. My career is over, and you have the nerve to come here looking for thank you." Before anyone could react, he lunged from the bed, his hands clamping around Sienna's throat. "You ruined me. Just die." Chloe froze in terror. It took Arthur and Martha, both pulling with all their might, to pry Dominic's hands off Sienna's neck. "Cough. Wheeze. Dominic, it's me, Sienna. Don't you recognize me?" Sienna looked at him with puppy dog eyes, seemingly forgetting that he had just tried to murder her. Dominic looked at Sienna's unburned face, and his jealousy turned into a physical force. "Why is your face fine? Why am I the only one who looks like a monster?" Sienna tried to sound devoted. "Dominic, I don't care what you look like. I will always love you." Dominic didn't care about her love. He wanted a scapegoat. "Get out. I never want to see you again." He began hurls everything within reach, water pitchers, medical trays, TV remotes, at Sienna. Her parents quickly wheeled her out of the room before she could be brained by a bedpan. Back in her room, Sienna sobbed into her pillows. Martha's expression shifted, and she turned to me with a manipulative, forced smile. "Julian, honey, Sienna just made a little mistake. She's learned her lesson now. Think of the child. For Chloe's sake, can't you find it in your heart to forgive her just this once?" Sienna, surprisingly, played hard to get. "Mom, what are you saying? I never said I want to get back with him." Martha slapped her daughter's arm lightly. "Be quiet. Julian is the only son-in-law I'll ever accept." Sienna went silent, tacitly accepting the plan. I started clapping. The sound was hollow and sharp in the small room. "What a performance. Your daughter is a scarred mess. Her lover dumped her. So now you want me to be the backup plan? Did I say I wanted you back? You people have a lot of nerve." Sienna's face flushed a deep, angry red. "Julian Vance, have you forgotten how you used to beg me to marry you? You were on your knees for 3 days. I roll my eyes. I remember, and I regret every single second of it. You're so petty. So I made one tiny mistake? You're acting like a hysterical woman." Chloe piped up from the corner. "If Mom cheated, it's because you weren't a good enough husband. We're giving you a chance to make it right. You should be grateful." Sienna nodded, finding her confidence again. "Exactly. I won't even hold your failures as a husband against you. If you pay for my surgeries and treatment, I might consider taking you back." I remember the early years. To marry her, I had cast aside my pride. After we married, I was her shadow, doing whatever she asked, earning a reputation as a pushover in the business world just to keep her happy. After Chloe was born, I worked even harder so I could spend every second with them. My devotion had turned them into monsters. I refused. I shouted, the sound echoing through the ward. "He can't." A voice croaked from the doorway. Dominic Thorne hobbled in, leaning heavily on a crutch. "Sienna, are you really going to leave me?" The moment Sienna saw her white moonlight return to her, she melted. "I could never leave you," she whimpered. Dominic limped closer and pulled her into a clumsy embrace. "I was just so upset before. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please don't give up on us." Sienna sobbed into his chest. "I was only talking to him to get the money for your surgeries, Dominic. I would never choose him over you." I stood there like a prop in their twisted soap opera. Chloe looked at me with a smug, triumphant grin. "Dad, stop trying to tear them apart. You're going to end up alone. An old, unloved man with no one to bury him. You deserve it." I was about to let her have it when the click-clack of high heels approached from the hallway. Slap. A slender, elegant hand connected with Chloe's face. Who said he was unloved? I looked up. It was Serafina Sterling. I had no idea she was even in the country. Chloe held her cheek, her eyes blazing. Who are you? How dare you hit me? Sarah slid her arm through mine, looking at me with a warmth that felt like a sunbeam. I'm your father's girlfriend, and soon, I'll be your stepmother. She turned her gaze to Chloe, her voice turning icy. The first lesson from your new mother is this: learn to respect your elders. Chloe had never been hit in her life. I had never even raised my voice at her. She raised her hand to swing back, but I caught her wrist in a vice grip. Watch your tone, I said firmly. Didn't you hear what she said? I only have one mother. Chloe screamed. She's a nobody. Sienna, triggered by the sight of another woman, pushed Dominic away so hard he nearly toppled over. She wheeled herself toward Chloe, checking her face. Julian, have you lost your mind? This is your daughter. You're letting this slut hit your own child. Chloe sobbed into Sienna's lap, playing the victim. I watched them with total detachment. If I didn't play the role of the devoted provider, I was the enemy. That was the only logic they understood. Chloe is spoiled, I said. Sarah is just teaching her the manners you clearly failed to provide. Sienna pointed a finger at us, her voice trembling. We've been divorced for a month, and you already have her here? You were the one cheating the whole time, weren't you? Sarah swatted Sienna's hand away with a look of pure disgust. Just because you're trash doesn't mean everyone else lives in a dumpster. Just then, Dominic let out a pain moan. Sienna's maternal instincts for her daughter evaporated instantly as she scrambled back to Dominic's side. Dominic, are you okay? Dominic, a master of the emotional pivot, let a tear roll down his charred cheek. I knew you still loved Julian. That's why you pushed me away. Maybe I should just go. I shouldn't get in the way of your family reunion. He made a show of trying to stand, and Sienna grabbed him, desperate. No, if anyone is leaving, it's them. Sarah rolled her eyes. Please, we didn't want to stay in this circus anyway. She pulled me toward the exit. Once we were outside the hospital, she immediately let go of my arm, her face flushing a soft pink. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I had to help you. I wasn't about to complain. She'd risked her reputation to stand up for me. Thank you, Serafina. Really. But what are you doing here? There was a detail in the London contract that needed a signature. Your assistant said you were here, so I came straight from the airport. She stepped closer, a mischievous glint in her eye. Unless you didn't want to see me? No, I definitely wanted to see you. Seeing her like this reminded me of the night I tried to ask her out in college. I'd set up this whole elaborate thing, and then lost my nerve at the last second. She'd back me into a corner then, too, asking me point blank if I liked her. I'd stuttered like an idiot. By the time I found my courage again, she'd moved to Europe. A month passed. I was fully immersed in the international merger. Sienna and Chloe called me hundreds of times. I blocked every number. Eventually, they showed up at the front doors of my firm. Marcus ran into my office. Sir, your ex-wife and daughter are making a scene outside. They're demanding to see you. I walked down to the lobby. It was a scorching summer day, but Sienna was wrapped in heavy scarves and long sleeves to hide her scars. She was sitting on the pavement, wailing for the benefit of the passing crowd. Julian Vance is a monster. He abandoned his wife and child for a rich heiress. He won't even pay child support. People were already stopping, filming the drama on their phones. Chloe was standing by, barking at my security guards. My dad owns this building. I'm the heiress here. If you don't let us in, I'll have you fired, you losers. I stepped out, my face a mask of iron. I put a hand on the young security guard's shoulder to calm him. In the crowd, I spotted Dominic Thorne. He was wearing a mask and a hat, lurking in the back like a puppet master. I realized then that Dominic had been dumped by his European patron because of his disfigurement. He was broke and desperate, using Sienna and Chloe as his meal tickets. Chloe saw me and immediately changed her tune. She ran over and grabbed my arm, swaying slightly. Daddy, the mean guard wouldn't let us in. Fire him. I pushed her hand off. I'm the one who gave the order. Do you want to fire me too? Chloe's eyes flashed with a brief, murderous hatred before she masked it with a pout. Daddy, I missed you so much. The sweetness made my stomach turn. Cut the crap. What do you want? Sienna crawled toward me, crocodile tears streaming down her face. Julian, even if you have someone new, you can't just throw us away. I'll step aside. I'll go away. But Chloe is your flesh and blood. You have to take care of her. The crowd started murmuring, throwing dirty looks my way. Dominic smirked from the shadows. Marcus held up a tablet, showing me the live feed. Sir, the stock price is dipping. The board is on line 1. Chloe, inheriting her mother's acting chops, began to sob. Mom, is Daddy really going to replace me with a stepmom? She hit me right in front of him, and he didn't even care. I don't have a daddy anymore. The online outrage was reaching a boiling point. I stepped into the center of the crowd and raised my voice. My ex-wife had an affair while we were married. She signed a voluntary divorce agreement to run off with her lover. My daughter chose to go with her and asked for child support. I pulled out my phone and displayed the digital receipts. Every single sin has been transferred to her mother's account on the 1st of every month. Then, I started scrolling through the photos of Sienna and Dominic's affair on the giant lobby monitor. My legal team will be releasing a full statement with evidence shortly. For those of you interested in the truth, feel free to follow the company's official feed. The crowd's energy shifted instantly. They turned their phones on Sienna and Chloe. Someone in the back spotted Dominic. Hey, that's the guy from the photos. That's the homewrecker. A few people surged toward Dominic. He was already frail, and a few well-placed shoves sent him sprawling. Sienna had to throw herself over him to stop the crowd from kicking him. With the merger finalized, I invited Serafina over to my place for dinner. I wanted to thank her properly. When the doorbell rang, I hurried to answer it. My lady, The smile died on my face. It was Sienna. I blocked the doorway. What are you doing here? She pushed past me anyway, acting like she still owned the place. She looked around the empty living room and sneered. Where's the new girlfriend? Did she realize you're a bore and dump you? None of your business. She reached in her bag and pulled out a gold-embossed envelope. I'm marrying Dominic. Congratulations, I said. I hope you two stay together forever. Truly. She sat on my sofa, looking smug. I know this is hard for you. Watching the woman you love marry someone else. I get it. I opened my mouth to protest, but she kept going. You were so mean to me, bringing that other woman around just to make me jealous. It was a good try, but I've made my choice. You just have to keep your love for me in your heart. I looked at her, truly stunned by her delusion. I used to think she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Now, I realized I'd just been projecting Serafina's image onto her all those years. Sienna, I said, my voice cold. Dominic Thorne had a sugar mama in Paris who was 80 years old. The only reason he's here is because his face is ruined and she cut him off. He's been a high-end escort since he was 20. Men, women, whoever pays. Don't compare me to him. I find him disgusting. I threw a folder of Dominic's work history into her lap. She went pale as she flipped through the photos and bank statements. Her hands started to shake. She stood up, clutching the evidence. You're lying. You're just trying to tear us apart because you're a hateful man. She stormed out. I watched her go, knowing her personal hell was just beginning. 10 minutes after Sienna left, Chloe snuck in through the side door. She fell to her knees, sobbing. Dad, I was wrong. They lied to me. Please forgive me. It's just you and me now, Dad. I'll take care of you when you're old. I promise. I looked at her and saw the fire. I saw myself screaming for help while she watched me burn with a cold, dead stare. Chloe, I said quietly, in a last life, you already sent me to my grave. This time, why don't you let your mother have a turn? Chloe's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. The secret was out. Dad, I was confused. She manipulated me. I'll leave her. I'll never speak to her again. I kicked her hand away from my shoe. I couldn't bring myself to kill her. I had raised her after all, but I could certainly let her rot in the life she had chosen. Go away, Chloe. You chose her twice. Now you get to live with the mother you always wanted. I pushed her out and locked the door. When the doorbell rang again, I was ready to scream, but it was Serafina. She was carrying a bottle of wine. Did I catch you at a bad time? She asked, smiling. I led her into the kitchen. The table was set with all her favorites. I learned to cook these when you were in London, I admitted. I thought you'd miss home. She froze. Julian, back in college, when I asked if you liked me, you never answered. I couldn't find you to say goodbye. Then I heard you were married. I realized then that a single moment of cowardice had cost us a decade. I wasn't going to let it happen again. I dropped to one knee and pulled out the ring I had bought 10 years ago. Sarah, I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life making up for that mistake. Will you give me a chance? She didn't make me wait. She took the ring and put it on her finger herself. You're only allowed to cook for me from now on. Sienna let herself into the dingy apartment she shared with Dominic. She found him shirtless, performing a suggestive dance for a webcam. On the other end of the call was a wealthy, older woman. Sienna's world collapsed. I gave up everything for you, and you're still just a whore. The pain of her scars flared up, fueled by her rage. She began grabbing everything in the room, vases, lamps, electronics, and smashing them over Dominic's head. Dominic, caught off guard, fell to the floor. Are you crazy? Sienna threw the evidence I'd given her in his face. Is this how you made your money? Selling yourself? Dominic stopped pretending. He sat up, wiping blood from his forehead, and looked at her with pure loathing. Sienna, look at yourself. You're a broke, scarred-up old woman. You think I'd be with you if you didn't have money? I thought you were a rich architect's wife. Then you signed the divorce and walked away with nothing. You're useless to me. He grabbed Sienna by the jaw. Actually, your face is still decent. I know a guy in the city. He buys stock like you. If you can't work the streets, he'll just take you apart for parts. Sienna realized she was trapped with a monster. She fought back, but Dominic was stronger. He pinned her down, his hands crushing her windpipe. Just as the world was turning black, a heavy thud echoed through the room. Dominic went limp. Chloe stood there, a baseball bat in her hands. Sienna scrambled up, grabbed the bat from her daughter, and began beating Dominic's head. 1, 2, 3. She didn't stop until the man she once called her muse was a red pulp on the floor. Sienna laughed a high, broken sound. She turned to leave, not even glancing at Chloe. Then, a sudden, sharp pain exploded at the back of Sienna's head. She fell, looking up at her daughter. What? Chloe's eyes were vacant, dancing with madness. Mom, I betrayed Dad for you. I killed him for you. But you never cared about me. You only ever cared about him. If you're gone, Dad will have to love me again. Sienna reached out a hand, begging for help, but Chloe just dropped the bat and walked out the door, mumbling to herself. Dad, I killed her. You can love me now. Chloe walked onto the main road like a zombie. She didn't see the semi-truck until it was too late. In her final seconds, she thought, if I get another chance, I'll choose differently. But there are no third chances. The police called me to identify the bodies. I told them I hadn't seen any of them in months. Sienna's parents had strokes upon hearing the news and ended up in a state-run nursing home. A few months later, Serafina and I stood on the deck of a ship in the Mediterranean. We were having a small, private wedding at sea, away from the ghosts of the past. The future was wide open. Love, a career, and maybe, eventually, a family built on something real. Story complete.